Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Viterbi School of Engineering's Transfer Ask Me Anything session. This is an opportunity from us as the admissions staff here in the USC Viterbi School of Engineering to connect with you all as prospective transfer students to help answer your questions as we are rounding out the last couple days to the application deadline. So from us, here's what you're gonna see from us is we're not gonna see any presentation. We're not gonna do anything. We're just gonna introduce ourselves so you know who you're speaking with, and then we're going to get directly to your questions. I'm going to tell you how we're going to do that right now before we get into that. The questions are all going to run through the Q&A feature. And so you see that Q&A button down at the bottom there. What I want you to do is you can go ahead and start typing questions into that now. And as you see questions populate, if you yourself specifically don't have any questions, you have the opportunity to upvote certain questions as we go. So I want to make sure that you are all upvoting as we go through the session. And what we're going to do, we're pretty confident we're going to get more questions than we can answer. So we're going to answer the most popular questions first and keep making our way through. So as you join and more questions come up, keep piling questions into the Q&A feature, and we'll answer as many questions as we possibly can in the hour. So without further ado, let's meet the rest of our staff here in the Viterbi School of Engineering, starting with Becky.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Becky. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admission. Thank you for joining us. I know that you all have lots of questions. They've been coming in through our email and phone calls with our transfer deadline coming up in just a couple of days. So thank you for joining us, and hopefully we can get all your questions answered.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angie. I'm the Senior Assistant Director, and I'm just happy that we could connect with you and answer your last-minute questions before the deadline.
And hello, everyone. My name is Stacy Badger. I'm the Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admission for Viterbi. So happy to be here with you all tonight. Excited to sort of see what we talk about.
Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Lisa Rosas, and I'm the other Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admission for the Viterbi School of Engineering. Thank you guys for joining.
All right, so we could not have a better group of people here to help answer your questions, but the event doesn't go anywhere unless you ask questions. So I see that we've got 2 questions here, which is great, but you're all here. Please ask your questions, pile the questions in there. The more questions we got, the better, making sure you're always asking questions. And again, as you're going through those questions, make sure that you can also upvote those questions. Again, we will only go through the most popular ones as we get down into it. So please do that as we go. So our first question that is at the top, it was the first question asked, and it does have the most votes. So Anisha, you win. Congratulations. I don't know what you win yet. Maybe we'll figure it out by the end, but you definitely win for tonight's session. Thanks for being here. Your question is, how does housing work for transfer students? Who would like to take that question first?
I'll take it. Sure. Housing is based on a lottery system for transfer students, so it's not a guarantee. You do need to apply for housing, and if there are spaces available in our residential halls, then they will let you know, and you'll find a place on campus. Most transfer students live off campus. Now, I know off campus sounds like it's far away, but there are actually a lot of apartment complexes right across the street within the mile radius of USC. So most transfer students I think that we all work with either live off campus in one of these privately owned apartment complexes, and other students will commute because they're local students to the greater Los Angeles area.
Anything else anyone else wants to add onto that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit to that. So transfer students that are coming in, you might not know a lot of other USC transfer students as well. If you go to the USC housing website, they actually have a feature there where you can meet other students that are looking for housing. You guys can communicate with each other and find some off-campus housing apartments, whatever you guys want. So that's another option as well to kind of create community.
Absolutely cool. And so that website is housing.usc.edu. Again, that's housing.usc.edu. You may want to check that out because you'll also go through the housing application process. It's something that you don't need to worry about until we get to the admitted portion of it. And if you are admitted, you are sent all of this information on how to find housing, how to work with housing, and housing does everything they possibly can to house as many transfer students as we possibly can every single year. So thanks, Chris, for that. Anisha, again, as a reminder, make sure that you're upvoting. So if you see questions, keep scrolling down there, see the questions that you want to rise above to the top. Make sure you're always doing that. I'll remind you as best I can, but please get those questions in, and also make sure that you are upvoting questions because those are the ones that are going to jump to the top. So the next question is Priyasi is asking things related to the first prompt, meaning one of the prompts in our application process. It says, please provide a statement that addresses your reasons for transferring, the objectives you hope to achieve. You can type directly to the box, or you can paste for the thank you for telling us, approximately 650 words. What kind of things are you looking for? So what are we looking for in that question? I'm going to answer really smugly, like, I don't know what we asked.
My answer is similar to Paul's, but in a more drawn out way.
Yeah.
So I think we get this question a lot about all the questions that we ask. First year students have the question about the prompts on their application. Transfer students like, what are you looking for? And kind of laughing along with Paul, we want to know why you're planning to transfer. I mean, it's really, there's no secret thing that we're looking for. There's no trick questions on the application. That specific question, if we want to talk about that specific one, why are you transferring? Are you at a 2-year institution and you want to finish your degree? Are you at a 4-year institution, but you realize, you're in the upper Northeast and it's too cold for you there and you want to transfer someplace more warm and sunny? Like, it's really, why are you transferring and what do you hope to achieve with your degree at USC and why do you want to come here? That's really the question. So that's what we're looking for, is just your reasoning behind applying to transfer and change schools that you're currently at to come to USC Viterbi.
Yeah, I think to add a little more color to that, and is one, and the reason I'm saying what we asked is what we're looking for. There's no, we want to encourage you not to overthink this process. And as Becky said, there isn't like a secret answer to any of the questions that are being asked, and more, to flesh that out a little bit more, when you look at the entire application, you have to imagine and you have to know that we don't know you and we're never going to know you. We've never met you, and we don't need to, because all these questions are the things that we would ask you if we were in person. So why are you planning on transferring? Tell us about that. What are the things you're doing? What do you hope to achieve? What do you think about majoring? All the questions are literally us asking questions inside the application to get to know you, so that when we read through the application, we get a sense not only of your academic history and your background, your preparation for our programs. We'll get that through the courses you've taken and the grades that you've achieved. But then everything else, I mean, you're so much more than grades. So tell us the rest of the story. Tell us what's happening. And to expand upon that even further, and something we might get into in further questions down the road, we know that every transfer student is entirely different and unique from the previous transfer student that we read. A lot of you, there's a small portion of you that have come out of high school and spent 1 year in college and are going to transfer across. Then there's another portion of you that have maybe been in college for quite some time and maybe trying to find your way, and you finally figured out this is where you want to go. There are others of you that are veterans that have military service, that have come out of the service and going back into college. There are some that have, life has just happened. Maybe we have parents in the audience that are coming back to school. Maybe they went to school a long time ago and now they're trying to come back to it. There's so many different variables here. We want to understand your story. That's what the application in whole does. And so please don't second guess it. We're trying to get to know you with every one of these questions threaded together. Okay. So it's not an assignment. There isn't a way to get an A. I think it's the way to put it.
Paul,
Yeah.
can I add something really quick?
Please.
This question, transfer students also get confused about, or maybe we have a question almost exactly the same in USC's short answer prompt. So there's an overlap in the type of question that the Common App is asking, and also the USC short questions ask, like, what are your goals for transferring and things like that. So for any of you who are struggling between the two questions, they're quite similar, the answers, so it's okay if there is some overlap. But maybe your Common App question is very general, and then your USC one is specific to your transfer goals at USC, and more specifically, even so with the Viterbi School of Engineering.
And Common App answers will be seen by all schools that you're sending the Common App to, and the USC ones will only be seen by us, but we will see both, just as a heads up. Okay, so again, the reminder, let's get some upvotes going, because we don't have a lot of upvotes in here. So I want to make sure you all remember we're going to go in order. So please scroll down, find those ones, pull them up to the top, and that's the order in which we're going to be answering these questions. Jesus is asking.
Make sure you're organized by most upvotes.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Thank you though. I appreciate that. Jesus is my next one. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So now we're looking at it right. Jesus is next. Under supporting information, there's a resume upload section. Do we have to attach our resumes? And if so, does USC take that into account?
So not really. And I say this because we don't really have time to review something that is not required on the application. So if you have anything on your resume that is relevant and important for us to review, make sure you put it in the Common App section, the activities, the involvement. And for transfers, that's going to be different. That's going to be full-time jobs, part-time jobs, internships, and things like that. But I would say it's better or safer to put it in the Common App in the actual section that exists for activities and like relevant experience versus the resume, we might not actually have time to review the resume.
Great. Thank you. Mahir is asking our next question. What are the acceptance rates by major for computer science? For example, is it statistically harder to get in as a computer science business major rather than a CS? And I'll answer this one. No, it is not any harder to get admitted to any one of our majors, not just inside of CS, than any other. We have different applicant pools every single year, and we have different spaces for availability based on the applicant pool. We adjust as we go. Okay. So as a private institution, and one thing you should understand is that we have no impacted programs, meaning that there isn't a set number of seats for any one of our individual majors. We adjust based on applicant pool and as we go. In general, the admit rate for a transfer applicant pool again can vary year by year based on who's applying, because we don't know who's going to be applying for fall 2023. We have a guess. We're assuming that we know what we're going to be bringing in. We're estimating that the admit rate will be somewhere just under 20%. So it's probably about a 20% admit rate based on the school. However, again, it's not so much who applies. It's not so much the number of students that applies, also who applies, the kind of work that they've done, how competitive that's going to be. But you can really think about 20% as the number as far as a chance of admission as we go. Anybody else want to add anything on that? Okay, Eric is our next question here. Eric is asking, thank you so much for the, hey, you're welcome, Eric. I've sent my official college transcripts to the Common App through Parchment. Will this satisfy USC's official college transcript requirement, or do I need to reorder my college transcripts to be sent directly to USC?
Yes, it will. So this is a common practice.
It will satisfy.
Yes, it will satisfy. If you are applying for multiple schools through the Common App and you send your official transcripts to the Common App will share it to every one of those schools that you are applying for. So you do not need to resend your transcripts directly to us if you have sent them directly to the Common App.
All right, great, thank you. Let's again, as a reminder, let's get some more upvotes going. We got lots of questions down there, but not as many upvotes. So please, as viewers, I know you're listening and I appreciate that, but go jump into those Q&As and get some upvotes so we can see things that we're going to pop. Nicoya is our next question, which is a high school official transcript required for the application? And if so, can I submit my application before the transcript is received?
Yes.
Yes.
Stacey, go for it.
Go ahead, Stacey.
No, I was like, jinx, Becky. The simple answer is yes, it is required. We're not looking at it to check your grades or anything like that for how you did in high school. We mostly just want to see that you finished high school. So whether that's your high school transcript or a GED, those types of pieces we do need for the application. And yes, those can come in technically after you've submitted your application. Get those in as soon as you can after you've submitted your application, because we can't actually start reading your application until we have all of those components attached to it. So submit that application, send those transcripts as soon as possible.
All right, great. Priyasi is back with another question. What is Viterbi looking for in its transfer students?
Excellence and perfection. I'm just kidding.
Excellence and perfection.
There's not one thing. This is a tricky question. We get it all the time. What are you looking for in a student? And there's not one thing, because we don't want to bring in one type of student. We don't want 140 of the exact same transfer student coming in. So we are looking for students who first and foremost will be academically successful, right? You're applying to an academic program, and we want to admit students who will do well academically here, who won't, struggle or too much, and who have who will do well. And then we're looking at the other components, everything Paul talked about, who you are, what you want to do, looking at your essays, reading, your short answer questions. And we are looking for students who should
Is that me or Becky?
No, Becky. I think Becky, you froze. Oh,
Becky froze. I don't know if anybody else can hear. Okay, so here's the question. Here's the short version. You got to be prepared for our programs. That's what Becky was talking about. And so are you taking the appropriate classes, and are you getting good grades? That's first and foremost what we're looking for. And we outline that on our transfer admission page, viterbiadmission.usc.edu/transfer. Essentially, are you taking the proper science courses, the proper math courses, or programming classes instead of science classes? We need to see that specific to your major, and we need to see you've done well. And doing well is A's and B's. If you're not doing well, then you are not what we're looking for. That's what's going to be most important. Beyond that, what Becky was referring to is, if you are doing well, then also tell us your story. Who are you? And that story is not one particular thing. It is all the different things that you may have done. And we're not looking for one type of person or one type of story to fill our halls. We need lots of different types of people from lots of different types of backgrounds to come together and to solve problems. But first and foremost, preparation for our programs as viewed with proper coursework taken with good grades, which is A's and B's. Before you all ask, there is no GPA that is good. There is no GPA that is bad. There is no minimum GPA, but we want to see A's and B's in the particular courses that we are asking for. And so I'll give you a scenario here where a student may have been in college for a very, very long time and maybe didn't do well in the first couple of years, but over recent years has done really well in the courses we're looking for. And maybe that total GPA is something like a 2.5 because did really poorly in the beginning, but did really well in the end. That if there's students meeting what we're looking for in those more recent courses of the courses that we've asked for, that's fine. A's and B's in those courses. So it's not about a certain GPA. We want to make sure that we know what we're doing. Sorry, Becky, we took over as we lost you.
I'm glad you did. You all froze and looked very funny.
Okay, good. So hopefully that helps you. Filbert is asking the next question, which is there's only a character limit for the unique contributions and grand challenge essay prompts, which is 2,500. That doesn't seem right, guys, is it?
Yeah,
It's characters, not words, right?
Yeah.
Is there an approximate word limit like the other essay prompts for those two?
It's like 250 words. I got this question asked a few times in the last few weeks or so, but yeah, it's weird. The Common App is showing some questions as word count, some as character count. That's a short answer typically. So 250 words maximum should be typically what you answer.
Also, we're not policing that. It's not like, oh, they hit 251, we're out. I mean, like it's not like that. So don't go crazy. But the point is that short answer means short answer. It's not a full essay that we're looking for. So keep that in mind. Hopefully that helps, Filbert. Priyasi, we already answered the question for acceptance rate, about 20%, but again, it changes year to year. Aiden is asking, on the application, it says to add a personal message or note under the recommenders information section. I'm not sure if this means that this is a note for the recommender about sending the form to them or a message for USC regarding information about the recommender. What do we want her to know about recommendations?
They are not required.
Yeah.
I think the Common App has it on there, and so you do have to fill it out to have a complete Common App and submit it, but USC does not require recommendation letters. So you could put your mom's name in there and then never send a letter, and we won't go looking for it because we don't. But you can submit letters of recommendation if you want to, but they are not required.
Yeah, we don't necessarily look for letters of recommendation for transfer students. We're more concerned about the preparation that we talked about before. That's what's most important. Anisha is asking, when will decisions start to roll out? And I want to be clear about this. We don't do rolling admission. We started getting this question about when will decisions come out because we know a number of you have already applied. We started seeing applications back in December. And just because someone applied early doesn't mean that they get any other type of admission or an earlier admission. We need all of the applications before we start to read them. So we haven't started the transfer file review process. Almost all what's going to happen is we're going to go through this process over the next couple of months, and it takes a little while. You can all expect to receive an admission decision or a request for spring grades by May 31st. So typically the last part of May. And if you receive a request for spring grades, it's because you likely have coursework in progress in your spring semester that is incredibly important to our determination of your preparation toward the major. So for example, if something like Calculus 2 is in your spring semester in progress, we're going to ask to wait to see that grade before we make an admission decision. If you are requested to submit spring grades, again, timeline needs to come into play. Just because you submit them right away doesn't mean you're going to get an immediate decision. A lot of you are coming from different schools, different programs, quarter systems, semester systems, where your grades will be different. So some of you might be done in May or early June. Some will go all the way to the end of June. So those that submit spring grades won't receive a final admission decision until likely the second week of July. And so that's when we end up going out. Anybody else want to add to that or add to anything that I messed up? Okay. Charles is asking, what are the deadlines to submit our high school and university transcripts?
There's not really an official deadline per se, but we can't review your application until we receive these documents. General rule of thumb, by the end of February, we should have all of your transcripts and things in so we can start reviewing your application. If you never submit them, we won't review your application. So it's just a matter of making sure you get those things in so we can actually review your application.
If we go into your application and things are missing, we're going to stop review and we're going to have the system send you a message saying we are missing information from your application. And if you never send that in, then we will never review or never make an admission decision on your application. So you need a complete application.
And I do want to mention that we won't just never review it. Come mid-July, the review season ends and we close out all the open applications. And so they just sort of default to not admitted. And it will shut down eventually because we can't just have open applications forever. So it come mid-July, we'll just, this review timeline is over and we'll just shut down any application that never completed.
Yeah, and to clarify a little bit of what Andrew was talking about too, is that you can submit your whole common application by February 15th. We don't want anybody not to apply because they don't have this one official transcript from high school because they couldn't get it in time. Just go ahead and submit your application. Just get the transcript in later. That's fine. Just not a lot later. We want get that in as soon as you can afterwards, so it doesn't delay anything on our end. You never want to pause this process on your part. I think that's the best thing we can tell you. I'll give another reminder here to upvote. And I know that that's something that we forget from time to time, but we do have good questions here. I want you to go down to the bottom, find them, pull them all the way up to the top. Whatever sounds interesting to you as an audience, hit the upvote. That will make sure that we're answering the questions that you want to hear more about. And also it helps pull down the ones that are repetitive that maybe we've already answered. And so I think that's what's helpful as well. Curiosity is just winning the golden ticket here with multiple questions going to the top here. This is fantastic. Curiosity, what major requirements and GA requirements should we have completed? I'm a CS major. Curiosity, I need you to go to the website. Otherwise, we're going to waste time talking about things that you can read. So viterbiadmission.usc.edu/transfer. When you go to that website that Angie put for the second time inside of the chat, you'll see specific plans that we want to see of coursework that we want you to be able to take on your way in based on major. Read through that. You should do that. That said, with the application deadline being 5 days from now, I'm pretty sure you're not going to change what you've already done. And so if you look at it and you see that you're generally in line, that's a good thing to apply. If not, then maybe it's not a good idea to apply, but we want to make sure that we want to see these types of courses in here because we want you to be a prepared applicant. Again, to be clear, anyone can apply. You're more than welcome to apply. But in order to be a competitive applicant, you should have these courses completed and or in progress. Some things popped to the top here. Okay, here we go. Alexander, I'm assuming that there's another question that he asked that didn't get bumped up. So people didn't like your first question, buddy. Sorry, this went straight to your second question. Is there a way to check if USC has received our transcripts? Someone we can email, for example. There's lots of people you can email, but there's also your portal. Can we talk about the admission portal?
I mean, you should have an admission portal. Basically, once you submit your application, you should have access to USC's admission portal. And on there, it's going to have a checklist for you on things that are submitted, things that are missing, everything like that too. USC is also really good about sending out emails a lot of times if we're missing things. Angie, do they do that with transfer students too, if we're missing transcripts and stuff? So basically, once you submit your application, keep an eye on your email because that's how we're going to get in contact with you if anything is missing. But your portal is going to be your go-to for all of the checklist of everything to make sure that we can even start reviewing your application.
And if I could just add, don't email us on February 16th saying my transcripts I sent them weeks ago and they're not there. We can't link your transcripts until we have an application. So if you sent your transcripts before and we don't have an application, then we don't know to link them until after you submit it. And then secondarily, we are processing thousands of documents right now at this time around the transfer deadline. So your transcripts may not be in the system until maybe 2 weeks after you send them. So just be patient. I promise you your transcripts get to us eventually, whether they're virtual or paper transcripts. And if we are missing it, if it is truly missing, we will contact you. You will get an email that says we are missing it. But just be patient and don't email us the day after saying, I don't see my transcript on my application.
Yeah, to be quite honest with you, submit the things. If you know you've done some stuff, trust that it's there. And if we need something, we will be in touch. It almost always works out, but Angie's right. We get a lot of panicked emails where we have to say, calm down. You like let some work happen for a little while. And as I mentioned before, this process takes a while. processing the applications, reviewing the applications, going through that. It's going to take the rest of the spring semester for us as we get through that process, in addition to the Office of Admission, because we're also still processing first-year applications. First-year students applied long before you all as transfer students. We're still going through them through March. So we're doing that at the same time as we start to process transfer applications, then transfer applications take over the load of file review afterwards. So please keep in mind, and I know that's hard to understand because it's not necessarily something you have visibility into, but this process will go all the way into May. Ayush, how are letters of recommendation considered, and is it all right if they are submitted a bit after the application deadline? As we mentioned already, we are not asking for, nor do we require letters of recommendation. We are far more interested in your academic preparation. And to clarify a little bit about this, can someone talk about the differences between first-year admission that some of these students might be familiar with and transfer admission, and how they sometimes they assume everything they learned about applying in high school and what they worry about with our transfer application process?
I mean, I'm trying to think that the applications are similar in the information we're getting. We're getting your transcripts, we're getting your grades. The review process is a little bit different. I don't know if that's what you're kind of referring to, Paul, is with high school students, there's a lot of information we get. We do require, a counselor report from them, their transcripts, everything that we're requesting that high school students submit. And with high school students, when we're reviewing applications, we are trying to guess if this student will be successful in college, right? Every high school is a little bit different. Some are more rigorous, some are more resourced, some are less resourced. And depending on the school and what the high schools offer, some high schools offer multivariable calculus, some high schools barely offer calculus A. So every high school is a little different. So we're trying to make these guesses on if a student will be successful in college. You all are in college. And so if you are doing well in your courses at your current institution, and there are courses that are equivalent to the courses that we're teaching here, we are going to assume that you would do the same here at USC. Yeah. And so the review process is a little bit different. Also, and I think we mentioned this, transfer students come from all very different backgrounds. With first year, everyone is 17, everyone is living at home, everyone is doing the same thing, everyone's in school from 8 to 3, and then they have their activities. With transfer students, we have such a wide variety of just the students, where they are in their lives, how they got to where they are now. And so your activities resume could be, I have a full-time job and a family. Okay, great, that's what you do. You're not part of student organizations because you don't have that time to be a part of it. Some of you are first-year students, and so you are involved in student organizations. You're 19 in your first year of college. And so, and how Paul said, some students were in the military for 8 years and now they're going back to school. So very different applications. And so there's not one thing we're looking for or anything that we expect a transfer student to have. So it is a very different review process in that sense.
Yeah. And the legends and myths and stories of admission to college from a first year perspective coming out of high school is all about those ideas of like extracurriculars and volunteer work and all other stuff, which is because most of the stuff that they take is exactly the same. But as college students, we're mostly focused on the work that you've done in college and are you prepared for our program. It is a holistic process in that we're considering all the other things, but as Becky mentioned, it's not comparing apples to apples. It's trying to understand the context of your life. And your life, all of you in this audience tonight, is very, very different from one another. And so it's not about quote unquote extracurriculars. It's just what is the context of your life and how do we understand your success in the coursework relative to that context? How do we value how do we assign some sort of value or understand your accomplishments in that context? And I think that's what's probably most important. Keep in mind that everything that you do is important and valuable to us, and we're going to admit different people with different reasons and different backgrounds. So just keep that in mind. Yuri asks, can transfer students get large scholarships? You are all going to be considered for scholarships as transfer applicants. There is no additional scholarship application or no additional scholarship deadline and no additional information that we need. And as our admission process is highly competitive, the scholarship process will be even more competitive. There are available scholarships for transfer students, but the largest scholarship that is available is up to a maximum of a half tuition scholarship. And there will be given out a few of those. And that is all part of our review process. Becky, anything else you want to mention related to scholarships? I think I got it all. I just want to make sure I'm not covering.
Yeah, I mean, you're all automatically considered for scholarships. There are some that could be up to quarter tuition. There's smaller scholarships, but I strongly recommend to also look for outside scholarships.
Yeah,
you just said this, like outside.
No, I didn't say that. So that's good. Talk about outside.
looking at outside scholarships, depending on your situation, your background. There's lots of little scholarships, different organizations that offer student scholarships to go to college. And it could be $1,000 here, $1,000 there, but you get 3 or 4 of those, and that makes an impact on the tuition. So don't expect to just apply to USC and get like a full ride scholarship. Those don't exist for transfer students. But there are small scholarships here, but then there's lots of outside scholarships that you can apply for through different private organizations and things like that. And so I do strongly recommend looking into those as well to help with the financing.
I'm going to skip to David's question because this is relative to this, because he's asking, if you do get a merit scholarship, what's the typical award? And I think we need to expand upon this idea of scholarships. And I think we also need to talk about financial aid, because I think that a lot of students confuse the concept of scholarships and financial aid. So I do want us to outline that for a quick version. So for a second, I'm going to tee one of you up to talk about financial aid versus scholarships. But first off, I want you all to recognize that in a competitive process in admission for USC, and the then even more competitive process for scholarships, and I don't mean this negatively, you should not expect to receive a scholarship. It is a small number of students, and there is no average that you can expect. So don't expect anything. Merit scholarships are rare. We do award them. We are very generous with these scholarships, specifically for transfer students, because especially compared to our peer institutions. But we want to make sure that you understand that if you get that, that is a bonus gift. Let's not worry about that. That's why Becky talked about the idea of seeking out other scholarships that you might come to. And also on our financial aid website, financialaid.usc.edu, you can go through some various scholarship search engines that we think are incredibly important and helpful. And anything you pull in is going to be helpful to you. That said, financial aid is in many ways far more valuable and far more important to the grand majority of you in this population. Who could talk a little bit more about the financial aid versus scholarships process and conversation?
I can talk about it a little bit. So USC is a private school. It is expensive, but we have need-based financial aid. So the easiest way to explain it is, if you have need and you submit your FAFSA and it shows that you have a 0 for expected family contribution or whatever that is, we're going to meet that need with scholarships, grants, work study loans. A lot of you might already have need-based financial aid at your current community college or university. It's not going to transfer in the same way. Every university basically awards need-based scholarships differently, but USC does meet full demonstrated need, and that is based on your family income or your personal income, depending on your age. So make sure that you submit the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act if you're an undocumented student, and the CSS profile. Those are the 2 things that are required by March in order to assess you for need-based aid. This is income-based aid. Merit scholarships, other scholarships, those are based on merit, based on grades, based on academics. So there are 2 kind of separate money sources, so to speak. And many of you will probably qualify for need-based aid to a certain degree. We can't say a blanket statement, but there, and we'll put it in the chat as well. There's a tool that you can use on the USC financial aid website to determine what kind of need-based aid you may qualify for.
That's the net price calculator. There's also one more. I'm realizing I don't have the URL for specifically for transfer students.
I'll look for it.
Thank you. Net price calculator is there. The financial aid website is there. Whatever you are in need of, when you set in all these documents, USC will provide you 100%. We meet 100% of your determined need. And that is a combination of grants, which is free money, a small percentage being loan and a small percentage being work study, but the grand majority being grant. And some people, grants and scholarships, the one thing they do have in common is that it's free money to you. So making sure that we're a very generous financial aid office. And that's a reason why a lot of students do come to USC, but some students get scared away from applying to USC because they assume they can't afford it. In actuality, we make it affordable for the students that need that money. So Mihir is asking for the question, quote, unique contributions to USC Viterbi. Does it seem okay to mainly speak about our life experiences and show by example, or is it better to speak more on my present experiences and skills? Who would like to take that?
I can start and then you guys can build on. Sorry guys, I'm new, so I'm still kind of learning everything. It seems fine. You can talk about anything that you find is unique about you, that's what we want you to get out of this prompt. We want you to be authentic and genuine. So whatever you feel that is telling your story in your context, you should write that in that portion. So we can't really advise what would be better. Every student's different, every experience is different. So just make sure you're being authentic and really voicing what you feel is unique and what you can contribute to USC.
Yeah, I mean, in rereading your question here, you might be overthinking this a little bit. There isn't a way to answer that question better than another. It's just what do you believe your unique contribution will be? And that we give you ideas in that question. Like, you may want to talk about this, maybe talk about that. That doesn't mean talk about all those things. That just means, what do you think? And that's your life and who you are. Again, as a reminder to everybody, upvote. I think we've lost the upvotes a little bit. We got a lot down there that are hanging down at the bottom. We're getting some more repeat questions that are floating to the top. And so we want to make sure that we get the upvotes going so that we don't do that. So get down in there and hit that thumbs up button on the questions you want to rise to the top. That will help everyone out in today's session. Dylan is asking, in the first prompt, should we mention anything about USC or keep that to the 250 word why USC portion? And so I think if we're referring to the first prompt being a Common App question, keep in mind that any answer that you put inside that, if you are applying to other schools, will go to other schools. And so if it's a Common App question, you don't want to talk about a specific university. Unless you're only applying to us, then I guess that's fine. But again, that's up to you. Any other feedback on that question?
No, I mean, I was just gonna say, for all the questions, you guys have very specific questions about the specific questions. Answer it the way you think is the best way to answer the question. Also, I'm noticing, and there's some more down here, a lot of questions about the word limit. You stop overthinking it. It says 250 word limit. You send us an essay with 300 words. I'm not sitting there counting the number of words. So if you go over, I don't know if Common App, the fields will let you go over, but if it lets you go over and it's a little over, that's fine. If it's a little under, that's fine. So just don't overthink the number of words. And when you look at the questions, just answer them the best way that you want to answer them. We're not looking for anything specific. And so if you want to talk about USC in that question, you can talk about USC. If you want to talk about it in a different question, then do that as well. That makes sense.
Great. Anisha is asking, what are you looking for in students regarding transfer scholarships? That is actually the exact same question as what are we looking for in students to apply? We're trying to find great students here. Something does not distinguish one to be a better student than somebody else. And so first and foremost, are you doing well in courses? And maybe you should be probably doing better than most in that process. And then what is the context of your life and your story? And again, back to Becky's answer earlier about the answers here, you're telling us your story. So what is the best way for you to tell us your story when you compile all these answers together and we read it as a book? That's what we're trying to understand. So please make sure that you do that. Next up, Priyasi, what makes Viterbi different from other engineering schools? Who'd like to take a crack at this?
I mean, I guess I can start. But I think what makes it different, it's kind of a tricky question because it really is it's almost like when someone says, like, what's the best thing about Viterbi type of thing? And you're like, well, what are you looking for specifically? Are you looking for something that applies more to you in that way? So it's different in my opinion, and the things that I like in my opinion might be different than the things that Angie likes or Lisa likes or any of us, are kind of interested in. But I think with Viterbi specifically, something that I've really liked about basically about Viterbi and USC, and something that I have found to be different is the fact that students are able to really have access to all of USC, not just the School of Engineering. So they can come in and be an engineering student while they also get to take classes in other parts of USC. If you want to take classes in the School of Cinematic Arts, if you want to take classes in music or psychology or any of these different types of things, we call that engineering plus. So doing the things you like to do plus engineering, all of those different pieces. I've always found that to be a little different. A lot of schools, they might have you just doing the engineering coursework. I also like that our class sizes are a little bit smaller, so you get to have really good connections with your professors, while also then having access to this large university where if you are interested in going to football games or doing different things like that, you have a lot of different pieces that make it feel like a very intimate small school for you while having access to major research and all of these different larger school components that happen at the same time. So that's, in my opinion, something that I find to be different, that I find interesting. But again, some people might have other pieces that they prefer and things that they're looking for as well.
Any other thoughts? I thought that was well done. No, great. I apologize. I mistakenly dismissed and marked as answered one of the questions here that I just pulled up from the answered section from Alexander Henderson. Alexander, thank you for that question. And I apologize that I got dismissed. It was not my intention. And it says, I've gotten really mixed answers from USC about the character limit. I was told by USC admissions office and an admissions counselor that for the essays without a word limit, as long as you are below the character limit, you are good. Yet you guys just said that 250 is the word limit for those. Are we going to be penalized for over that? Alexander, you're freaking out. Don't worry. Okay. Number one, I apologize if it's been confusing and misleading. It's not. What we're getting at here is that there are long form essays and there are short answers. And we're giving you a suggested character count of what's going to happen inside of those. And so go for that. Long form essays, which I think is what you might be referring to, and you guys tell me if I'm misreading this. We're referring to the question earlier about short answers and that it's around this many words. That's fine. And as I said before, we're not going to penalize you if you hit 251. We're just suggesting that there are long form essays that, of course, that I don't know if there's a character count or word count on those guys. Do you know? I don't think we have one. Tends to be about a page. Short answers tend to be about a paragraph, maybe two. And again, I'm specifically not using characters or word counts or anything else because we're not counting them, but we are letting you know there are essays and there are short answers. Angie, any clarification you can add here? Or am I hitting it okay?
Yeah, it's just the Common App is using two different ways to describe length. So it's confusing people. One says words, one says characters. Just keep it to about a page worth, a big essay, and then a short paragraph or two short paragraphs for the short answers. And
I don't actually think that when you put them in, it buzzes you at all. I don't think it does either. It doesn't limit you. Like we're giving suggested counts, so you should be fine. So thank you for asking that clarification question, Alexander. Back to our most upvotes. Filbert coming in hot again. For the prompt below, requires an answer, but what we should write if it's not applicable. For each college or university in which you were enrolled in less than 4 units, you just say it's not applicable, right? This is saying like, have you taken any time away? And I think it says if this applies. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, you don't have to answer. That's not a required question. It's just basically saying ignore summers. If there was a fall semester or quarter or a spring semester or quarter that you were not enrolled full-time, why? So you were only enrolled in one class, you took a leave of absence, just let us know why. And if that does not apply to you because you've always been in school every fall and spring since kindergarten, great, don't answer that question.
I think you have to answer it on the
put words in it. Yeah.
So just put NA. NA. Just put NA.
NA, I have not taken any gaps. Now, where this becomes important, specifically for all of us in this transfer audience, like I said, some of you maybe had military service. And so that would explain that we see a transcript from 2014, and then all of a sudden nothing, and then all of a sudden transcripts start again in 2020. Well, the main question here is, what were you doing for 6 years if we don't know about that? So tell us what that 6-year gap was. Maybe, like I said before, maybe we have a parent in the audience that's going back to school, and you were engaged in school all the way up to 2004, and all of a sudden you start school again in 2021. Well, what were you doing for that 17-year time period? And I have a feeling if you're a parent, you were raising an adult at that point. So this idea is much more about, if you see gaps where you've taken time away and you dropped out of college, you stopped, you started again, you went off to military service, you did all that other stuff, you took a break because you wanted to figure yourself out. That happens a lot in our transfer application. You just went to work for a little while. I get that. That's totally fine. That's why we're asking that question. In the grand majority of you, NA, not applicable. I've not taken a break. Totally fine. Thanks for asking that question, Filbert. Again, please upvote. We got about 15 minutes. So if you got a question you want to see answered, get down there and pull it all the way up. Answer live to Jacob. What is the demographic of non-traditional transfer students, older students, veterans, et cetera? Meaning, what's the demographic stat, Jacob? I do not have any stats related to that. We're not keeping track of that as something that is necessarily something we're looking for or not looking for. So I don't have that stat. I mean, do you, Becky, at all?
Like the percentage of students who
I
are
think Jacob's asking about percentage when he means demographic.
Oh, I don't have that. And so non-traditional is basically over 24, right? 18 to 24 is like traditional college age. I don't have a number. I will tell you every year we admit non-traditional students. Again, military service is a big one that would make a student of non-traditional bachelor's degree age. Second bachelor's candidate, so they got their first and now they're getting their second one, so they're a little bit older. Every single scenario under the book
Every year
that we would have. So yeah, obviously most of the students in the bachelor's degree undergraduate programs are of traditional age, but every year we have non-traditional age students coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I would make sure I clarify that by no means a majority. But then if I think about all the different types of students that are transfer students, there is no majority of type of student either, because everyone's coming from so many different backgrounds. So, but every year I can think of each year someone that comes in that meets the tick marks that we just talked about. So, Priyasi, what's the GPA of students who are accepted? That's not a number I have. It's not a number I know. It's also not a number that's important because students are coming through with different GPAs. What we're looking for is, have you taken the classes that we've asked you to take, and have you gotten A's and B's? So they're traditionally doing well. But again, I've outlined scenarios in this Q&A where students probably don't have good GPAs, but have done well based on the definition I've just given you. Dylan, how holistic are admissions? I think is what the question is asking. This is a holistic admission review process, if that's what you're referring to, meaning that we are first and foremost trying to understand your academic preparation, but also understanding the context of your lives. And we want to understand all the things that you're doing that make you who you are. So yes, we're very holistic. Fiona is asking, will a weaker grade from a non-programming course that USC does not require for a CS major hurt my application a lot? I'm taking that course this spring semester.
I have some thoughts on this question. First and foremost, one grade is not going to make or break your application.
Yes.
So all those questions we get, oh, I got this one low grade, or oh, this happened, or oh, this happened. That one thing is not going to be the thing that's going to make or break your application, because it is a holistic review process. And so while we're looking at your transcript, if we're just talking about your academics specifically, we are looking at the courses that you've taken. Do you have the math? Do you have the science? Do you have, if you're CS programming courses, do you have the required courses to be competitive for admission? And so that's going to be the most important. Then what are your grades in those courses? Are they A's and B's? Are you doing well in them? Then we look at your overall academics. And so while a lower grade in calculus or science is more concerning than a lower grade in Spanish 1, freshman year of college, we are going to see everything. And so again, one course is not going to make or break. And we can't even really answer this question until we've seen your entire transcript and application. We don't know how it's going to affect the review process, but not only that, until we've seen the entire applicant pool, because we get, about 1,200 applications every year. We admit about 20% of those students. And so we're comparing you amongst your peers. And so maybe even with that one lower grade in a course that's not required for USC, you're still a top applicant for that applicant pool. And so there's a lot of factors that go into that review. Also, grade trends. Maybe if a student has a lower grade that they're concerned of, was it 3 years ago in their first semester of college, or is it in their differential equations class last semester? So it really depends on a lot of different factors when we're reviewing your application.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. And I think what's most important is what Becky talked about, is that what does everybody else have? Because it's a comparison process. And I want to highlight something that I want to distill or dispel a rumor that I think a lot of people think is the case, is that we're typing in these grades into a spreadsheet and calculating a number and then sorting you on a spreadsheet or running some sort of formula on how we run admission. And that is not how this is done. We are looking at that transcript. We are seeing the classes that you have taken. We have seen the grades that you're getting in those particular classes. And then as human beings, we are understanding how successful you're being. And so as Becky talked about, Doing poorly in a really recent higher level math class, very concerning to us. Doing poorly in a Spanish first year college class a couple years ago, yeah, doesn't really matter.
And then I question, what does weaker grade mean?
Yeah, what is weaker grade? Yeah, everybody has a different definition of
A
weaker
B plus,
grade.
because that's fine. A's and B's are fine. And kind of going off sort of the GPA question we always get, like what's the average GPA or what's the minimum GPA? There are many 4.0 students that we have not admitted to USC. And there's one that sticks out in my mind because she was very upset with me. But she did not take a single math or science class. She had art, she had humanities, she had all these classes. So she had straight A's, weightlifting, things like that. So she had straight A's, but she had not taken the math or science that was required. So we could not admit her to engineering. And so, I'd rather have a lower grade in the right courses than straight A's in courses that don't apply.
Yes, that is what we mean by determining your preparation for our program. That's what's most important. That's what we said in the beginning. We've said it at least 4 different times since then. A few more questions here in the last 10 minutes of our program. Again, last chance, upvote if you want to get it up here. 10 minutes left. You're in charge of the questions, everybody. So get those votes going, and we're going down this list. Jesus is asking, do we have to input our grades manually in our transfer application, or do we just send the transcripts?
You can just send your transcripts. You don't, for us anyway, you don't have to fill out that section unless you have to in order to submit. Just send your transcript. We don't really pay attention to that part because we need your transcript.
Marina, are we required to submit AP scores? You're not required to do it, but I will tell you this, more information is always better. And so if you have those types of things, let us know what you have it. That's a good thing. Charles is asking, if we are applying to get into USC as a sophomore, how many high school activities should we include, if any? Charles, I want to back you up a little bit. Don't think of it as applying as a sophomore. You're still transferring. It doesn't matter when you're coming in or what you're coming in. And I want you to get away from the freshman, sophomore, junior, senior thing, because everybody's coming in different ways and it's not necessarily a sophomore. So that's a helpful little tidbit to you. It'll help you down the road. Y'all, thoughts on does high school matter at all as a transfer applicant and what we're reviewing?
Not really. I see this a lot with what they're calling themselves sophomore transfer.
Because they've been 1 year of dead school. Yeah.
And I would say I still think it's okay to put high school stuff if you're just barely removed out of high school. But if it's been like 5 years or more, don't put high school stuff. But yeah, if like Charles, if you were just fresh into college, this is your first year of college, that's okay to put high school stuff. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, because it was just things he was doing less than a year ago. So
right. I mean, speaking both sides of our mouth here, I'd want to know what you've been doing now, right? Like high school is one thing, but college in the context of the classes that you're taking is what we're trying to understand. And as we mentioned before, it's not like that first year application where we're for lack of a better term, looking for those extracurriculars. We just know what you've been doing. And we want to understand that. And if there's only high school stuff in there, then I start to wonder, then why? Like, you have more time in your life as a college student than you ever did in high school. What have you been doing with that time? What is the context of your life? That's what's important to us as we understand a holistic review of your application process. Sam is asking, where on the Common App should I put a personal statement? Don't. Fill out the application. That's all you do. And I think that what's interesting is that so many times people are living off of myths and legends related to applying. And I think personal statement is a thing. And sometimes applications ask for personal statements. That's when you do it. But in our application, respond to the prompts that have been given to you. We have certain questions that are being asked, and we want to understand the answers to those questions. Anything different from you all? No, just reiterating, just answer the questions that are asked. Don't give us more stuff to read on the application. Don't give us stuff we didn't ask for. It's a good rule of thumb. Eric is asking, I've heard that first year transfers typically receive a spring grade request. If I've finished all my course requirements, is it likely for me to receive a spring grade request? If so, my spring semester will end on June 30th, so I'm afraid that time may be an issue in this case. I think we've already answered this, Eric. And so if courses are in progress that we're looking to see for your preparation as listed on our website, if those are in progress in spring semester, you're more than guaranteed to get a spring grade request. And if you do, I know they end in June, which is why we don't do admission review on those spring grade requests till after we get all of those. And so typically admission for students that we gave spring grade requests happens in July. So we get you covered. We understand it. Jacob is asking, will it make you less competitive to only have programming courses and no lab-based science courses? And so I'm assuming you might be applying to computer science. And as a computer science applicant, we want to see math and lab science or programming classes. Either one, you're not more competitive with one or the other. It's your choice. And we outline the options for you on the coursework that we've seen there. Anisha is asking, what do you look for in a Viterbi Pathways application essays, and what is the approximate acceptance rate? Viterbi Pathways is a very specific program that's invite only, and it's nothing different than anything we've talked about so far. Samikak? Don't know. I'm sorry if I'm mispronounced that correctly. Samikak is asking, are high school grades heavily looked at for transfer applications due to personal that I had a hard time getting the best grades and thinking my college grades are better reflecting my ability to do well? Is it possible to explain my situation to the admission office? Better understanding? We want to see college grades. So if you're doing better in college, that is perfect, because that's the type of work we're looking for. That's the level of rigor we're looking for. Perfect. That's what we want to see. Your high school grades really don't matter. Is algebra a requirement if we have calculus 1 and calculus 2 and other higher level math completed? Algebra, if you might be requiring to do linear algebra, which is different than algebra, and we want to see calc 1, calc 2. If you have that completed and you're still in school, we want to see you continue down that road. Look at the coursework that's out on the transfer website that typically involves calc 3. It might involve linear algebra and differential equations. We want to see you continue in mathematics. When it's available, you don't just stop. Okay, if you stop, then you're not taking courses that we want to see. Mahir is asking, is there any point mentioning on the essay the classes I've taken? For example, speaking of taking CS classes as CS major. No, because we see your transcript. So you don't need to repeat things that we're seeing elsewhere in your application, unless it's vital to the story you're telling. I don't know. Anyone else have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think only if it's vital to the question you are answering, like where you talk about the class and why it made you want to be a CS major or something like that. But as far as just talking about programming or CS courses you've taken, we'll see those listed on your transcript.
Jesus is asking, because I belong to the LA Community College District, we share one student ID number and transcript. Is it fine if I send just one transcript from my home college rather than the multiple LACCD colleges I attended? And can you expand upon this, whoever's going to answer this, talking about multiple colleges they may be attending?
Sure. The answer is yes, Jesus. It's fine if you only send one transcript, as long as you've only attended LACCD schools. We don't expect you to send from ELAC and West LA and, LA City. Yeah. However, if you have attended multiple schools in multiple districts, we do need to receive every transcript from every school you've attended, even if it's just one class that you took years ago. And this is classes that you took after you graduated from high school. Again, just like to reiterate, one transcript if the district shares transcripts, multiple transcripts if you have multiple courses in multiple districts.
We need to see all college coursework taken, however that shows up. And if we're missing anything, then we're going to need to get it from you. And that, even if that was from years ago, all college coursework taken. Okay. Lightning round. We're going to go super quick. You all ready? Here we go. Jonathan, if we completed high school outside the United States, how can we fulfill the high school transfer requirement? Will we have to contact our high school to send it directly? Can we send it or the diploma ourselves? Yes. I'm hoping you guys were answering. I'm not answering.
Like, this is not lightning.
Lightning is if you go fast. So yes, you got to contact, we got to get a transcript.
Yeah.
All right, here's my question. I have not been able to navigate the USC Student Navigator website, and I was not able to start my application. How do I communicate that question?
I don't understand.
I don't understand. John, go to our website. You need to go to the Common App and start your application. If you can't, I read the application instructions there, and there is help on the Common App website.
Yeah, if you're having technical difficulties on Common App, you need to contact Common Application.
Yes. How we know if USC received transcripts? We already talked about this. It's in your portal and apply to. Can we put a portal? You'll get a portal link once you apply. Alexander, do we have to submit our transcripts after we've submitted the app? Yes, I already sent transcripts, but I'm writing on the letter of Rex. My application isn't submitted. Should I resend them after submit? No, but give us time to process it and connect your application to your transcripts. Are applications reviewed by Viterbi specific admission officers? Yes, you're looking at them. And or is there just general admission officers that look at all the applications? Yes, you're not looking at them. They're in other places, but we all look at it. And there are specific office, or if there are specific officers or anything specific you guys look for. We've already answered this question multiple times. We are the specific officers, and we're just looking for you to apply and understand who you are. Fiza, if I end up dropping a class that I said I was taking, will that change anything? Yes, it will dramatically. And any changes to any coursework that you told us you are taking, adding, dropping, whatever, you do need to notify us of that particular element, because if we admit you, please keep in mind that every admission decision from our university is a conditional offer of admission contingent upon completing the things that you've told us to do. And so if things are then lacking, for example, you dropped out all your classes, we can rescind the offer of admission. You don't want that to happen. You need to keep us up to date with everything that you're offering, because you are signing affidavits that tell us that this is a completely clear and true application as you go. It is a legal document. How much is tuition? Take a look at financialaid.usc.edu to check out the current tuition rates, to check that out. And thank you very much. Angie's just killing it here. Should we send high school transcripts or high school diploma or SAT score? You should send any information you have. SAT scores don't really care about, but transcripts we do need to see. Where do I submit my letter of explanation and high school equivalent certificate on the Common App? Common App or sending through us, guys?
What is it? Letter of explanation?
I don't know what letter of explanation is, unless that's a financial explanation.
No, so if any student has a GED, they need to include a letter of explanation why they received the GED. You should be able to do it through the Common App in the other documents section, but if you can't, just wait to submit your application and then upload it to your USC portal.
Filbert is going to be our last question for tonight. It's not a question. It says, thank you so much for taking the time to host this MEA. And thank you for being here. And we hope you found it helpful. All of these answers actually are on our website, everything we talked about. And so for other stuff, take a look at the links that we've been giving you, viterbiadmission.usc.edu/transfer. Check that out. If you miss any of this, we're going to be putting the link up on our website, and we'll follow up with you on email with a link to it a little bit later, but get your app in. February 15th is the deadline. We're super excited to see your application, to review your application, to get to know you all, and hopefully to get you to join us here in the Viterbi School of Engineering as an engineering or computer science student. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. We look forward to seeing it soon. Have a fantastic evening. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. We'll see you all a little bit later. Bye.